In the first age, in the first trial, when the hexes first cleansed, one stood. He chose the path of perpetual gen rush. In his ravenous reloading, he found no peace, and with splinted leg, he scoured the entity's domain, seeking vengeance against the survivors who had wronged him. And those that tasted the bite of his spear named him the Deathslinger.
Hello everyone, Interact back here again with another episode of Entity Education. Hopefully you enjoyed the bit of a different intro. I just can't get over how extremely edgy the title Deathslinger is, so I had to make a little homage to Doom 2016. Honestly, this video was supposed to be out before Doom Eternal, but I got sick, so yeah, might be a little bit late. Oh well. Anyways, in this episode we'll be covering Caleb Quinn, probably better known as the Deathslinger. I'll probably call him literally anything else when possible, because I cannot say his title with a straight face. So look forward to me calling him anything other than Deathslinger for the rest of this video. See how many references you actually catch and understand. As always, there'll be timestamps up on the screen right now and also down in the description and the pinned comment below. So for base stats, the Gun Lord does not have the same base stats as all other killers. Instead, he has the tear radius of 24 meters and movement speed of 4.4 meters per second, or 110%. This is the same tear radius and movement speed as the Hag. This will make it easier to sneak up on survivors because of the smaller tear radius, but harder to actually chase them or traverse the map normally because you do move 5% slower than a basic killer. So let's talk about Shoot Man's power, the Redeemer. It's a spear gun. The first thing you'll notice once you start playing a match as him is that if you press and hold down mouse 2 on PC, of course, you'll be able to aim down sights. If you've played basically any FPS ever, you'll understand what that means. If you haven't played any FPS games, or you only play Counter-Strike, aiming down sights, commonly abbreviated to ADS, just means that you'll pull the gun up to your face and look down the sights of the gun as you might expect. This is how you will aim the Redeemer. There is no firing the gun without ADSing, so you'll always have to ADS before you can actually use your power, and ADS time is 0.15 seconds to actually pull the gun up to your face before you can shoot. While ADS'd, you'll have your screen zoomed in by an extra 25%, so you'll be able to see farther off targets a little bit easier. The aim point for the gun, where the harpoon will actually shoot out, is actually the tip of the little iron sight thingy on the end of the gun. I don't know if it has a technical name or not. So the harpoon will spawn slightly above the gun. That's why, if you've seen Scott's video, that's why the harpoon spawns above the actual barrel. It's a bit silly, but if you slow it down, but that's why. You'll also be slightly hampered while ADSing, and this is intentional, so don't think something's wrong with your controls. Your pitch speed, the speed at which you'll be able to look up or down, will be slowed to 80% of its normal sensitivity, and the yaw speed, the speed at which you can look left to right, will be slowed down to a massive 40% of its normal camera movement speed, which can mess with you a bit if you're not used to it. This can also lead to a lot of missed shots if you don't get a hang of the slowed down camera movement, and your character will be slowed down to 75% of your normal movement speed. Baseline, this will be 3.3 meters per second, or 82.5%. If your movement speed increases, just 75% of whatever the increased movement speed is. So what about after you found a target and got them in your sights? Well, the Redeemer has a maximum range of 18 meters and a pretty precise hitbox for the projectile on whether it will hit a survivor or not. It is a projectile, it is not hit scan, but the harpoon travels at 40 meters per second, which is ridiculously fast. You will be slowed down by 50% of your current movement speed while firing the harpoon, and this will only last for half of a second. After you fired the harpoon, there are obviously two things that can happen. Either it lands or it doesn't. Let's quickly just say that you've missed your shot. If this happens, you'll suffer a 1.5 second cooldown period, where you'll be slowed once again by 50% of your current movement speed. If you land your shot, the survivor will become immobilized for 0.75 seconds, and you will become slowed for another 50% of your current movement speed for 0.5 seconds. Are you noticing a trend? After this, the survivor will be chained and face you, and a few things can happen. Firstly, you'll notice that you can hold down mouse 2, PC of course, to drag the survivor towards you, reel them in. And you may notice that the survivors will be unable to move backwards at all away from you, they can only move left or right. While reeling in a survivor, you will be slowed, and the survivor will be slowed as well. There is a lot of code that goes into how reeling actually functions, but I'll spare you the fine-grained details, and basically just tell you that no matter if you are standing still and reeling, moving forward towards them and reeling, or moving backwards and reeling them in, reeling a survivor from max range to just close enough to give them a little smooch on the cheek is going to take you about 6.8 seconds. I double checked and tested this to make sure, and oddly enough, Behavior actually did a seemingly really good job at coding the reeling times, so bravo to whoever actually coded the reeling, because it's the same going forward, backwards, standing still, left, right, up, down, A, B, start. They did a good job for once. The chain itself actually works on a charge system, but that's not really something you'll have to worry too much about while playing. You'll see the bar appear once you've hooked someone, and it will start to progress towards the end. Once it reaches the end, full bar, the chain will break. This will happen once it reaches 100 charges. Passively, the chains will gain 2.5 charges per second. If a survivor is struggling against the chain, making literally any movement at all, it will gain an additional 15 charges per second. If the chain is colliding with an object or even another survivor, it will glow bright orange, telling you that it is colliding with something, and gain an additional 20 charges per second. I say additional all those times because these charge gains actually do stack, meaning that you and the survivor just standing, staring at each other, both AFK, the chain will break in 40 seconds. If the survivor is just struggling and the chain is not colliding at all, it will break in about 5.74 seconds. If the chain is colliding but the survivor is not struggling because they've given up and they just are okay with dying, the chain will break in about 4.44 seconds. And if the survivor is struggling and the chain is colliding with something, it will break in about 2.66 seconds. If you don't manage to reel them in and hit them in time, and they do break the chain, they will obviously become freed, but will become injured and suffer from the deep wound status effect. Mr. Gunboy will suffer a pretty punishing 4-second stun, a lot like that other killer with deep wounds that I can't really remember the name of. Probably not all that important. At any point during the reeling process, if you think you're not going to be able to reel them in close enough, they're already injured, you can just do a basic attack to break the chain manually and avoid the stun penalty, although you will suffer a basic miss cooldown because you did miss an attack. But obviously that's shorter than the 4-second stun, so it's really your call to make in the heat of the moment. Keep in mind that the chain breaking will not down an injured survivor. It will give them deep wounds, which will waste a little bit of their time mending, but it will also waste a lot of your time with that hefty 4-second stun, so probably not advisable. You may be wondering what the point of even reeling them in is. Well, once they're close enough, you can lunge at them and hit them, and this will damage them, obviously, because it's a basic attack, and apply deep wounds if they're healthy, or down them if they're already injured. Once you've shot your gun, no matter the outcome after that, you'll have to reload it to do it again, since it's a single-shot rifle. My dude couldn't even chill out for a classic lever action to be a real cowboy, but a loser. And yes, before you leave a comment, listen, lore nerds, I understand he made his own rifle, and the ingenuity of doing that in the time period he's from is a feat of invention all of itself, and he's not even a cowboy, he's a bounty hunter. I don't care, it's a joke, chill out. Reloading the gun will take you 2.75 seconds by default, and during this reload you will be slowed by 60% of your current movement speed. Baseline, this will be 2.64 meters per second, or 66% speed. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about his add-ons. We start off at the common tier with Spit Polish Rag. This add-on will slightly decrease your cooldown when missing a shot with your spear gun. This means a 0.25 second reduction to your cooldown after missing a shot, bringing it down to 1.25 seconds total. Next up is Snake Oil. This add-on will slightly increase the reeling speed of your spear gun. This means an extra 0.1 meters per second or 2.5% speed increase to the speed at which survivors will be reeled in, bringing it up to 2.7 meters per second or 67.5% speed. Essentially what this just boils down to is that at maximum distance of 18 meters, you will reel them in about 0.2 seconds faster. It's really not that big of a deal. I know there's a lot of numbers, so it's kind of confusing, but the add-on's pretty worthless. Following that, we have Rickety Chain, continuing behavior's trend of making weird BP add-ons. This add-on will grant you 50% more blood points for the Speared Score event and allow survivors to break free more easily. This means the amount of charges gained by survivors struggling against your chain will be increased by 5, bringing it up to 20 charges total, making them able to struggle free a little bit faster. It does not affect the base amount of charges gained per second, that's still 2.5, and it doesn't change the amount of charges gained per second if the chain is colliding, it only increases the amount while the survivor is struggling. The final common add-on is Modified Ammo Belt. This add-on will slightly increase your reload speed. This means it will reduce your reload time by 0.25 seconds, bringing it down to 2.5 seconds total. Moving on to the uncommon add-ons for Man with Gun, we start off with Rusted Spike. This add-on will make survivors that you hit while they are chained up by the spear gun suffer from the Mangle status effect for 60 seconds. This means exactly what it says. If you hit someone while they're chained, they get mangled. Next up is Poison Oak Leaves. This add-on will slightly increase the mend time of survivors inflicted with the Deep Wound status effect only from your power. This means an increase to their mend timer of 1.5 seconds, bringing it up to 13.5 seconds to mend themselves, or 9.5 seconds with a friend. Next up is Marshal's Badge. This add-on will slightly decrease your terror radius and movement speed while aiming down sights. This means a 4 meter decrease to your terror radius and a 5% decrease to your movement speed as well while you are aiming down sights. This will bring your terror radius down to 20 meters and your speed down to 70% of your current movement speed, or 3.08 meters per second, or 77% speed baseline. Next up is Jaw Smasher. This add-on will slightly increase your movement speed while ADS'd. This means a 5% increase to your speed while ADS'd, bringing you up to 80% of your current movement speed, or 3.52 meters per second, or 88% speed baseline. And the final uncommon add-on for Death Boy is Chewin' Tobacco. This add-on will moderately decrease the stun if a survivor breaks free from your chains of your spear gun. This means a decrease of 0.5 seconds, bringing it down to 3.5 seconds of total stun timeage. Moving on to rare add-ons now, we start off with Warden's Keys. This add-on will moderately increase your reload speed. This means a 0.5 second reduction to your reload time, bringing it down to 2.25 seconds total. After that is Wanted Poster. Wanted Poster will moderately increase your movement speed while ADS'd. This means a 10% increase to your movement speed while ADSing. This will bring you up to 85% of your current movement speed, or 3.74 meters per second, or 93.5% speed baseline. Next up is Tin Oil Can. This add-on will moderately decrease your cooldown after missing a shot. This means a 0.5 second reduction to your cooldown after missing, bringing it down to 1 second if you miss your shot. Next up is Honey Locust Thorns. This add-on will afflict survivors who break free from your chains with the Mangled status effect for 60 seconds. This does exactly what it says. And the final rare add-on is Bayshore's Gold Tooth. This add-on will moderately increase the reeling speed of your spear gun. This means an increase of 0.2 meters per second, or 5% speed to survivors being reeled in, bringing it up to 2.8 meters per second, or 70%. Basically, all this means is that you will reel them in from max distance about 0.4 seconds faster. Once again, really not that big of a change. Really not a very good add-on. Going up a tier, the first very rare add-on is Prison Chain. This add-on will considerably increase the time it takes survivors to break free. All this add-on does is give your chain an extra 10 charges. It's basically worth less than a second of extra time for reeling in a survivor, so I think it's basically a joke, and behavior should stop making add-ons like this. Following that, we have Gold Creek Whiskey. This add-on will moderately reduce your tear radius and movement speed while ADSing. This means an 8 meter decrease to your tear radius and a 10% decrease to your movement speed while aiming down sights. This will bring your tear radius down to 16 meters and your speed down to 65% of your current movement speed, or 2.86 meters per second, or 71.5% speed baseline. Next up is Bayshore's Cigar. This add-on will considerably decrease the stun when a survivor breaks free from your chain. This means a decrease of 1 second to your stun timer if a survivor breaks free, bringing it down to 3 seconds total. And finally, we have Barbed Wire. This add-on will moderately increase the mend time for survivors hit by your spear gun. This means an increase to the mend timer of 3.5 seconds, making it better than the Legion's add-on, by the way, bringing it up to 15.5 seconds to mend by themselves, or 13.5 seconds to be mended with a friend. So let's talk about Edgy John Wayne's ultra rare add-ons. We start off with Iridescent Coin. This add-on will make it so that any survivor hit by your Redeemer by over 15 meters away from you will inflict them with the exposed status effect as long as they remain speared. This means exactly what it says, honestly. However, the maximum range is 18 meters, and pulling survivors in from that distance is really rough unless they have literally nothing to break the chain behind. And even if you do hit them in a completely open space, you barely have enough time to lunge and hit them before they do break the chains, assuming that they understand how struggling works. So it's not a very good add-on. And the final ultra rare add-on, and the final add-on in general, for a bad Ned Kelly ripoff, is Hellshire Iron. This add-on will reveal the aura of all survivors within your terror radius for as long as a survivor is speared. Once again, means exactly what it says, and considering that you have such a small terror radius by default, I'm really disappointed with how underwhelming and just kind of garbage his ultra rare add-ons are. I wish they had used that extra week to make him have some halfway decent ultra rare add-ons, but this is behavior that we're talking about, so I don't really know what I expected. Now let's get into the teachable perks you'll unlock when you put your blood points into Budget Man with No Name. At level 30, you'll unlock the teachable for the perk Gearhead. After hitting survivors with 2 basic attacks, Gearhead will activate for 20/25/30 seconds. While Gearhead is active, anytime a survivor hits a good skill check on a generator, the generator's aura will be revealed in yellow for as long as it is being repaired. Yes, this perk got nerfed from the PTB, but it's not like anyone other than Ots was going to run it anyways. At level 35, you'll unlock the teachable for the perk Dead Man's Switch. Dead Man's Switch will activate for 35/40/45 seconds after you hook the obsession. While active, if any survivor stops working on a generator, that generator will become blocked for as long as Dead Man's is active. I have tested this. If 2 survivors are working on a generator and one of them decides to chicken out, they all get kicked off the generator, and the generator will become blocked. So it is a little bit better than people may give it credit for. And finally, at level 40, you'll unlock the teachable for the perk Hex Retribution. Hex Retribution has 2 pretty nifty effects. The first is that anytime a survivor cleanses a Dole Totem while Hex Retribution is still up and active, they will suffer from the Oblivious status effect for 35/40/45 seconds. Anytime a Hex Totem is cleansed, including Hex Retribution, the auras of all survivors anywhere on the map will be revealed to you for 10 seconds, which is pretty amazing. So how exactly should you go about playing the Arizona Ranger with the big iron on his hip, you may be wondering? Since he is fairly new, I'll just go into more generalized details about things that I've found while playing him a little bit, and give some tips on things you might not realize at first glance. Honestly, a lot of Mr. Limpy's skill comes down to just being able to hit targets with your gun, so you kind of just need to practice doing that first and foremost. The first major thing that a lot of people don't seem to realize is how the reeling actually functions in terms of if you should move forwards, backwards, left, right, whatever, or just stand still. A lot of people, from the PTB at least, are falsely under the impression that they should always move backwards while reeling because it makes it faster. While yes, the survivors do move towards you faster because of relative vectors, it doesn't actually take less time for them to get to you. It's the same time as if you move towards them or if you just stand still. As I stated earlier, I did test this and I confirmed that it is the same amount of time. However, since reeling them in backwards makes them move faster, it can actually make them harder for them to get behind an object nearby to make the chain start getting blocked. So there is some merit to reeling while moving backwards. If you're out in the open, say in rotten fields, I wouldn't really bother backing up while reeling, unless you just want to get into the habit of it. But if there's something like a tree or some junk or boxes or whatever near them, you may actually want to be backing up most of the time to make them come to you closer so they can't get behind that object to block the chain and get free. As I said, there's no downside to moving backwards while reeling, so if you want to just do it all the time, feel free. You might just bump into objects or something because you can't see behind you. Just don't go around saying or thinking that it's saving you any time just because you see the survivor moving faster. It's the same amount of time. Another thing that I feel like people don't really do properly, and maybe this is just because people are getting the hang of him, but is the actual usage of his gun. I see a lot of players just trying to use the gun for every single hit, which actually just wastes a whole lot of time in the long run. If you can get the first hit without using your gun, you should do that. He's not like the Huntress in that matter. You shouldn't use your gun all the time. If you can hit them and then shoot them and get them reeled into you and then hit them for the down, that is significantly better than using it as a first hit tactic. This doesn't mean you should never use it as a first hit tactic, because obviously there are a lot of places where you would be better served off shooting, hitting them, reloading your gun, and then repeating that for the down. But that's just something you'll have to determine during the course of the match. Just don't be one of the people that I see literally shooting for every single hit. You can still hit them with basic attacks, even though you have a nifty gun. Speaking of reloading, of course, you might be wondering what the best time to reload is. Should you be reloading during your chase, or waiting until after you've downed someone? Honestly, I think reloading kind of comes down to when you think you need to do it. But I believe that you should wait until Survivor is at a loop where you think you need to get the pallet out of the way, or you will be able to shoot them if you do reload your gun. Obviously, this is another judgment call that you'll need to make during the course of gameplay, but just remember that you are slowed down while reloading, and it is a fairly significant amount of time of being slowed down, so you will be giving survivors extra distance between you to possibly get somewhere safe if you're spam reloading your gun after every single time that you've shot. And also, pretty obviously, you should reload your gun if you shot someone and downed them before you pick them up, just to save you that little 3-second-ish amount of time after you hook them and you want to get into another chase with your gun fully loaded. Something to know about the chain is that once it actually connects with a survivor, there is that brief little window, that little 0.75 second window, where they will be hooked, but the chain meter doesn't actually appear. You can use this time to try and move them out of areas that are safe, if they're like behind a piece of junk or something, and into an area where they won't have anything to block your chain with. Despite the fact that during this time the chain will appear with the orange glow, if it is being blocked by an object, this doesn't actually matter until the bar actually shows up on your screen. Another neat thing to know is that since the hitbox for the harpoon, spear, whatever, is actually very precise, you can shoot through little tiny gaps in walls, fences, buildings, the killer shack, whatever. While most of these spots won't actually be helpful while you're playing, since hitting a moving target through a tiny little hole is really difficult to pull off unless you're a god. If you know precise hitboxes of like every single object in the game, you might be able to snag a few extra injuries and deep wounds that you may have missed out on if you're just paying close attention to where those holes and gaps are, and you can land those sick trick shots. Just make sure you post the montage of you doing this to YouTube with too much editing and horrible music on it, and use that as your application to FaZe Clan. Also, if you spear a survivor who is trying to vault a window, you can pretty easily get a hit on them over the window, assuming you're close enough to actually walk up to the window before they break the chain. And the final thing I'll touch on is mostly just heavy air quotes on this one, mind gaming with the gun, if you even want to call it mind gaming. Much like the Demogorgon, where if you just use your power, survivors will see that you are aiming down the sights of your gun, and you don't really have any penalty for just like canceling it really quickly. And this can cause survivors to kind of see that you're aiming and panic a little bit and maybe start running serpentine instead of in a straight line, and maybe you can catch them out before they hit that safe loop, and you can just hit them with the edge, with the bayonet? Yeah, bayonet. It's called a bayonet. I should know that, probably. And get basically just a free hit by heavy air quotes, mind gaming, by just canceling your ADS super quickly. So let's talk about perk builds now. As with newer killers, the meta hasn't fully developed for Slack-Jawed Wyatt Earp yet, so I'll just highlight some perks that I think work well with the kit, and maybe give an example build or two that I've been using that I think works extremely well. All of the usual perks you'd expect to be good on pretty much every killer are no real exception for the Gunlord. Barbecue and Chili, Whispers, Corrupt Intervention, Pop Goes the Weasel, all solid inclusions. Just use your preference based on if you want tracking, an easier early game, solid generator slowdown, whatever. Let's talk more specifically about the Bounty Hunter now though. Let's talk about the three biggest perks that people have been using for the Gunlord and his kit. The first is of course Monitor and Abuse, because with that on, you have a 16 meter terror radius outside of a chase, which is really tiny, and his unique terror radius music is pretty quiet on the edges, so you can super easily sneak up on survivors and catch them out before they have a chance to run away. Most of the time anyways. The second major perk that people have been running is Save the Best for Last. Since you do rely entirely on basic attacks to down survivors, you can save a lot of time on wiping your gun with your thumb like a weirdo if you have really high stacks. A fun thing to note, fun I guess, isn't a subjective word, is that you can save stacks if you injure your obsession by shooting them and then letting them break free, because this does injure them without actually attacking, which saves you 2 stacks. You do have a nice hefty 4-second stun from doing that, however, so you might just want to bite the bullet, sorry about the pun, and not use that tactic in most situations. And the third major perk that works extremely well on Mr. Yeehaw is a Nurse's Calling. Since your terror radius is already pretty small by default, and even tinier if you're using Monitor, and you have a somewhat good ability to injure survivors, you can get some good mileage out of Nurse's wall hacks. And if they're healing in certain areas, you might be able to use that precise hitbox to be able to hit them with the Redeemer, pull them in, and slap them for trying to heal in your face. So a sample build might look something along the lines of this. This is the basic one that I've been using. Barbecue and Chili, Monitor and Abuse, a Nurse's Calling, and Corrupt Intervention. I found that with these perks, you don't really have any real quote-unquote slowdown, which can be a severe hindrance since you're a nice slow 110% killer, but if you can land your shots, you'll be able to sneak up pretty easily on survivors with Monitor and Abuse. The early game map will be shrunken due to Corrupt Intervention, so you can get a few easy first hits, and then you'll be able to track down those injured survivors with Nurse's Calling, and then find out where to go after you've hooked someone with Barbecue and Chili. It really comes down to personal preference. If you feel that you need real slowdown, feel free to remove probably Corrupt Intervention and substitute in Pop Goes the Weasel or something else. Another build that I found that I've had a lot of success with, although it is very RNG dependent, is Barbecue and Chili, Hex Retribution, Hex Haunted Ground, and Hex Devour Hope. As I said, since you have 3 Hex perks, it's extremely RNG, whether this build works out or not, but it's very fun, at the least, and you can get some pretty nasty snowballs if a survivor cleanses a haunted ground at the wrong time, and you can hit one person, shoot one person, reel them in, hit them, and then just go from there, since they'll be exposed from haunted, and you'll get auras for 10 seconds with Retribution. And then late game, they'll probably just expect that your Devour Hope totem is a Retribution totem, and they won't cleanse it until maybe it's too late and you've gotten your 3 stacks and you just start insta-downing everyone left and right. It's a bit riskier of a build, but I enjoy it, so feel free to run that one if you want. So now let's move on to some meme builds for Legion with a gun. The first meme build would be a Silent Sniper build. For this build, you're going to want to run both Gold Creek Whiskey and Marshall's Badge. For perks, you're going to want Monitor Abuse, and then basically whatever else you want, although tracking perks like Nurses or Whispers would probably be a good idea. When you ADS with this build, your tear radius will go down to just 4 meters. Although you will be slowed down a whole lot, baseline you'll be slowed down to 2.64 meters per second or 66% speed while you stay ADS'd. So you probably don't want to be aiming the entire match unless you're an insane person. I mean, feel free to do that if you actually are an insane person, but I'm not going to be bothering with that. And do keep in mind that you have that hefty camera yaw pitch speed penalty while ADSing as well if you are planning on walking around looking down the barrel of your gun the entire match like a madman. And the second meme build is basically the opposite of the first one, and I'm going to call it Quick Scopes. For this build, you're going to want to run the add-ons Jaw Smasher and Wanted Poster. For perks, you're probably going to want to run Play With Your Food, and if you want to go all in on the build, I'd also run Nemesis, Enduring, and Spirit Fury. This way, while you're aiming down your sights without any Play With Your Food stacks, you'll move at 3.96 meters per second or 99% speed, almost the same as a Survivor. And if you have Play With Your Food stacks, you'll move even faster while ADS'd. Once again, keep in mind that you do have that hefty camera yaw pitch speed penalty while ADSing, but you can zoom and maybe get some quick scopes if you're really good. And, as a fun bonus, Play With Your Food stacks are not lost when you shoot your gun, because shooting a gun is not an offensive action for some reason. I don't know why. And that's it for this episode of Entity Education covering Caleb Quinn, probably better known as the Deathslinger, but you won't ever catch me calling him that again. Thank you as always for watching. If you want to watch me play Dead by Daylight on Twitch, there's a link in the description. If you want a spreadsheet with all of the add-on numbers, there's a link in the description. If you want to join the Entity Education Discord and hang out with cool people and post jokes and call me a boomer, there's a link in the description. If you want to follow me on Twitter and read my tweets, I guess, there's a link in the description. There's a lot of things in the description. Thank you as always for watching, guys. I do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video, which will be covering someone who hopefully has a less edgy name. Goodbye.